Larry Izzo, you are a Washington Commander. What's going on, Washington Commanders Nation? Commanders Coaching Search 2024 has added another to the fray. Larry Izzo has entered the chat. New special teams coach. Larry Izzo comes over from the Seattle Seahawks and has coached up a special teams unit that has finished fifth, fourth, and eighth in DVOA. That had a top 10 unit every year since he's been on staff as the special teams coach. And they have a total team DVOA of fifth, fourth, and eighth. DVOA is defense adjusted value over average. And he's a guy, first of all, look at him. He looks like he means all business. Larry Izzo's from Virginia. He grew up in the Nova area. L to the Izzo, V to the Izzy. For Shizzle my nizzle, he played football down in VA. He went to Broad Run High School here in Virginia, grew up in Fort Belvoir. This is a guy who was coveted in these streets. You know, Seattle's hiring a new staff. We beat their new staff to the punch on their special teams coach. Because you know, when a new coaching staff's brought in, all the current coordinators who have not heard of their fate yet can be poached up immediately. So, three-time Super Bowl champ as a player. He played for the New England Patriots. We're bringing guys from successful programs, and we're bringing guys who are not old. Also, another under 50-year-old coach. I'm loving it. I'm loving the staff we're putting together. Current updated staff as we sit here on Friday, February 9th is Dan Quinn, obviously. Cliff Kingsbury is OC. Joe Witt Jr., defensive coordinator. Special teams coach Larry Izzo. Quarterbacks coach Tavita Pritchard. Defensive pass game coordinator Jason Simmons. And to be determined, but it feels like passing game coordinator Brian Johnson. And I was listening to Dan Quinn do an interview with Chris the Rooster Russell of the Team 90 or 106.7, one of those radio stations. I think he's on the Team 980 now. And Quinn spoke about hiring a staff. You can tell Dan Quinn has been anxiously awaiting his second opportunity and getting a crack at being a head coach. He said, what's really cool for you and the fan base is there are people that really, really want to be here. I think that should speak to where the organization is headed and what's going to go down because people feel that energy that's going to come on. Behind the scenes, fans would be really pumped to know that guys are really pushing to be a part of this organization and on this staff. I think that's a really good sign. Yes, we have a lot of work to do, but behind the scenes, that's a pretty cool thing to have. It's about getting the right people on the bus, and then we could put them in some seats. That's what it is to me. Let's find some really, really good coaches. Not everybody is the same. Communication, the teaching, the development, the technical side, all of that is there. You just want versatility. It's like putting a good team together. You want enough of this, enough of that, making sure however you want to play that you've got the right people in the right spots. We've got work to do. We've been busy so far, and we'll continue to push it to bring the right guys here. This is the words of Dan Quinn speaking to Chris the Rooster Russell on a radio interview just yesterday. And he's putting together quite a staff. Seattle's special teams started to regress before Larry Izzo took over as the interim special teams coach and then full-time head coach after 2020. They were 19th in DVOA before he took over the job, and they finished in the top 5, top 7 specifically, since he's got there for a team like Washington who desperately needs it. You should never have to hear the name or hear a storyline that consists about your long snapper. We had a full season storyline of what the hell happened to the long snapper that we traded up to draft. We traded up for the right and privilege to draft a guy who has forgot to snap the ball over the years. And eventually we had to move on from him a lot later than we needed to. We ended up botching punts and botching field goals in games. Outcomes were being determined by a long snapper's presence. Never want to see that again. I want a special teams coach to come in here and get these boys right. Not saying Nate Kazar is not the guy. I know Jeremy Reeves jumped out there and said, I hope we keep Nate Katzer. It's a new regime. And while I don't want to sit here and clamor for a bunch of people's job, I'm glad we're hiring a lot of new people and we're not just going to retain the previous staff, because I want people to see that the bare minimum is not enough. The results that we garnered here over the last few years, it's not enough. And I trust Dan Quinn to build a staff. Out of all the guys we could have got here, Mike McDonald is struggling to put a staff together in Seattle because he's going to have other people pull rank for him. He's not as well connected in league circles as Dan Quinn. All Dan Quinn got to do is shoot up a text, an email, and he can get in contact with a litany of people all throughout the league. And one of the things he did build in Atlanta at his time being a head coach, he built a fire-ass formidable staff in Atlanta. He had Mike McDaniel, Matt LaFleur, Kyle Shanahan, and Raheem Morris working under him, a squad of young ballers. That's 5 head coaches on one staff. He saw the vision. He had the foresight that these guys have the minds to one day be a head coach. Took a chance on all these young guys, and they got to a Super Bowl and should have went to 2 there in Atlanta. We have a team builder, a culture builder, a real culture builder, and a guy who's hiring for competency and experience, and not just people that are your golf buddies, people that he worked with in the past. We're not seeing a list full of Cowboys and Falcons coordinator just because they worked with Quinn. It varies on why we're hiring certain guys, but I love them. We're not just hiring guys just because they worked with the coordinators. We're hiring guys for expertise. We're hiring younger guys, and we're hiring guys that have been a part of winning programs, and we're hiring people who are good at their job. Jason Simmons has developed multiple really good corners in this league and has played a role in a top 3 defense before. Larry Izzo has dramatically increased the value of Seattle Seahawks special teams. Everybody has a purpose here. Brian Johnson helped develop Jalen Hurts into an MVP type an MVP candidate, a guy that could not throw a couple years ago to a guy that's now seen as one of the top 10 quarterbacks in this league. I'm excited. I'm excited for the staff Washington is putting together here. Dan Quinn, cook. Let him cook. Let these boys continue to put the finishing touches on this staff, and then we can move forward to the player part of the offseason. Who will we retain as players? Who are we shooting for in free agency? And my favorite thing of the entire offseason, the 2024 NFL draft. And we can dive into QB Search 2024 because you know we love to talk quarterbacks on the channel and in the fan base. Washington is putting together one hell of a staff. Shout out to Dan Quinn, Adam Peters, and company. Let's roll and let's build. Hail to the Washington Commanders. Until next time, out.